Greetings, my friends. This is Maerlande, and welcome to Vince and R again.
Hello, everyone.
So we're going to do another episode of Lernean Hydra. So as you can see, we had a stale turn. Do you remember particularly why this turn went stale, Ben?
Yeah, so this was where we started to discover the idea that if you do a Hydra game, that if two of you try to log in, and you either do like a wrong password once,
Right.
or there was another criteria that could happen pretty easily, you would end up wiping out the orders if the other person had put orders in already. So basically, you then would stall your turn if you weren't paying attention.
Right. Right.
So that's what happened to us. I think you had done the turn already. I logged in to check something, and it ended up overwriting with no orders, basically.
Yeah,
and
you
so
get blank orders, and
Yep.
so I mean there was a bunch of troubleshooting. People practiced this and sorted it out. But I just wanted to comment on that. So if we go starting here with the messages, so we get a stale turn. I don't need to read that. The dire portent. Okay, so Mother Oak is up, Archocephali, and that's a very, Mother Oak is probably the most common early global in the game. Usually it's somebody like Pangaea or whoever has pretty solid nature income out of their capital. As far as us, luckily, we had a few things going right. So having a look here, we've got a little bit of counter rating coming from Patala, Bakemonos, some Mercatas. In hindsight, I remember thinking, Bakemono, no big deal. But I think I underrated them, because if we look at these crazy guys, there was some comments see, I've watched the first 4 episodes of the Omniscience from Sakane and Sai, and they comment that you got to remember these guys are 15 damage, 6 a square. They're dangerous.
Yep. Yeah, those little guys, you got to watch out for them.
Yeah.
You pack them into a square, and if they got decent damage, they're going to hurt. And
well, see, like Mercata, they densify, but they can't hit anything and they don't do any damage. You're totally different. Attack at 10 is adequate. It's not amazing.
And they usually find them in caves, which, unless you have something like, dark vision, you're at a disadvantage as well against these guys.
Yeah, well, this is a cave,
They
I
have
think.
dark vision, right?
Although we have a pale one, but
yeah.
See, look at this guy. His attack, he's damaged by the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
So anyways.
And they don't, what was it? Do they have dark vision? The
pale ones do. Oh, do the Bakamoni? Yep.
Yeah, so they don't have, so they also have, they only have a -1 penalty versus your -3. So
yeah, that's pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other one, just some Atavis and some Bandars. He's using the big maul guys. Patala used a mix of the Bandars. He used some of the light Bandars with the 2 sticks and stones. Those are very solid. And here's our hero. The only hero we got. I don't know. I guess that's a spoiler, but we didn't have a heck of a lot of luck, even because, we just went neutral on the luck.
Yep.
Other than that,
and the hero selection for Midgard is it's okay. It's not something you would want to force luck scales to get. If you get them, great. If you don't, sure.
They're not stunningly good. Yeah. Well, there's definitely nations that. But so we are underway. Another comment that was made in the overview Omniscience video is, we conceded all of this to Archocephali. They thought we should have pushed against it. I didn't think it was really all that critical, but I guess I didn't take into account that we did allow Archocephali to push very far from his capital, but I sure didn't want to deal with the shipbreakers when they showed up here. I mean, his grabbing the shipbreakers so early, because that was quite early on, about turn 5 or 6, that we saw the shipbreakers here. And it was like, I don't want to deal with that. We just didn't have enough fans.
Yeah, I think that gets to the point of where you're starting. How aggressive do you want to be, and do you want to get into you know a very early war over a province? You don't know unless you ask the kind of question. Did we push hard enough? Could we have pushed harder? Maybe,
Well,
certainly.
we could have pushed harder at a higher risk and the chance of a wipeout. Um, the problem is, if you muck up an attack with vans, then they tend to get all wiped out. Much
Yep.
like we saw, this will show up in our friggin' all-stars. When you rush forward with cavalry of some kind and go typically attack rear or something, if things go wrong and they start running away, not very many get away. A lot of them don't. Although it's not as bad here, but
Well, there's even from the Diplo aspect of it, right? Do you go and say, hey, if you're aware that they're 4 out from their cap, and again, hindsight's 2020, right? It's like, oh, if I'd have known that, you could have pushed harder, on the Diplo side and said, hey, you know, you're 4 out from your cap.
We'll see.
We're not gonna
Another
deal with
thing
that.
about
But you
it,
have to be able to back that up, right?
right? Well, another thing that I remember thinking is if Arcocephali can get in this pond, which we could not really contest, that puts him smack in the middle of harassment of Caleb.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I felt that's kind of useful to allow Arcocephali to be sitting here in this pond and possibly sending out little submarine raids. It's kind of a little bit of a screw you thing to Caleb. So, those are some of my thoughts there. But so what we've got happening, I guess we should take a look at our planning. So we've just got scouts. We're just making sure we could see everything we can see of Patala. That's a big army in his capital. Now, something I found out is in, I think, the 3rd episode, Patala lost their Devi very early. And they went up, you should watch it, it's pretty funny. They sent it against Vinemen, which didn't work out at all well because the Devi had moderate protection, but the chip damage killed it. And its fear aura did no good. Yeah, so they lost their Devi about turn 6, something like that. And then the other one that came up, now that we're recording this after those episodes that come up, the other one is Fascia lost its god turn 2 or 3. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing to go back to the Arco question too was at that point we were already looking at saying that Patala was a target for us.
Mm-hmm.
So not worrying about necessarily one province on our western border versus what we could gain. And again, that's
On
our
our
confidence saying that we were going to be able to win that war. And look, that's part of why you do these things, to say, well, here's where I messed up, right? Or here's where we made a mistake.
But we
right?
had negotiated, I thought, adequate borders with Bogarus in that we negotiated stretching out by 2 in a few places, and then one case not. So 2 from our capital that way. Caleb, we negotiated comfy so we could get this fort up early. Again. And our plan was expand west in early war. So I think, just anyways, people will see this when it goes up and they'll go, okay, well, you guys, and you make decisions when you're playing a game like this. I guess the other thing to have a look at is what have we got going on here? So we have set ourselves up here that 4 is going to be our forward base. So we're doing a bit of blood hunting, put a little province defense. Our sort of generic chaff units are here patrolling so that if needed they can move out. And then we've got various small armies of Van Jarls. Preferably now we're moving to Van Jarls leading these armies, not Van Herses, to toughen them up a bit. Mostly, looks like I still left a couple of air gems around. Definitely in hindsight, I want to get rid of those because they were not useful in these raids. Having the air gem, the single air gem on here just made it worse.
Right.
I should take a look here. So have we done anything really interesting different on the scripting? No,
No, I think we were pretty
couple less.
standard across the board
Yeah.
for the vans on what we did.
So we didn't use, one thing that was commented is having your guys on guard commander and then hold, or buff, hold, and then attack with the commander is stronger than what we were doing. It is, but I had watched some other stuff, and I'm not terribly experienced with elves, especially the vans.
Mm-hmm.
I had watched other people do this in another game I was in with Helheim, and he was my disciple teammate, and he lost a bunch of his early commanders just by a bad lucky shot, took them out, and that cost him brutally in expansion. So it's a higher risk maneuver to use. So if we were to set it up, we would be, skip the cast, hold, and then attack, and then we'd set these guys on guard commander. Now, to make that work, you really do need a little bit of upfront bait squads. A few hellherdings, or not hellherdings, what are they called? These boys. Huskarls. Just a handful of Huskarls up front, 2 or 3 even in single groups, just to muck with things.
Yeah, but that gets into the question of, when you're using a Helheim or a Vanheim, and you're using your Cav, you don't want to slow them down with, the ground troops, right? The whole idea is that if I need them to jump to provinces to go, take on something or try to rapidly respond, if you have them tied with infantry, you lose their mobility factor. So,
well, there's that. Yeah, that is correct. So during expansion, that's fine because you're usually just punching out one at a time. But we wanted this 26 movement for very good reasons, and that's an excellent point.
I tend to, even during expansion, I will encircle provinces just because of their move, and I can jump out. I'll very rarely work on the cap circle with these nations because if I need to, and I'm pumping out a couple extra infantry guys or something later on,
right,
they'll be able to go take the cap circle later, and I'm looking to solidify my borders as quickly as possible in that sense. But
the other one you might want to watch is when we sent our starting army here at Gulf Lass and it got wiped. I personally felt that was just a little bit of bad random numbers.
Yeah,
morale broke a little bit early, just a tiny bit of difference, and we would have won that fight. So
it's the beauty of Dominions, right? No matter how well you prepare or plan, that random number can always screw you.
Yeah. So now, are we attacking here? This is an attack. This guy's a sneak attack. These are just moving into position.
Yeah,
you can see by the gray arrows. So
I think that we.
Yeah, so we're definitely. Well, we had done a couple of attacks here because this was a counterattack back at us. So plus this was a stale turn, so that mucked things up.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we move on to 19, or you've got any more comments here?
No, I was just gonna say the stale turn couldn't have happened at a worse time.
No.
So
no.
And if you think about it, that's why it happened, right? We were double checking everything that we were doing because this was supposed to be a hey, let's pop everything, at once kind of scenario, and it didn't happen on the turn that we expected. So it gave Patala an extra turn to react to what had happened on turn 17.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, and I didn't, because of that whole business again of looking at the files and stuff, I don't have an archive of 17, so we can't really show that. But I think it's fairly obvious here that we did a fairly minor raid on Patala, but not the doom raid that we really wanted to have happen.
Yeah, that was to happen, I think, on this turn that stalled, and then
yeah. Well, let's take a look at 19 here. All right, so we can see from the list quite a significant number of attacks. We've got some searching going on back at home. A handful of blood slaves. It's pretty hard to get some decent blood action going on. And one thing we've got here, as you and I had talked, just in case we met up with the Devi as an SC, we thought, well, let's give these guys some serious punch so they can punch through that Devi. So we gave them halberds of might. And with our larger, we wanted a length 3, so better than a great sword of sharpness was the theory. Both would work for that purpose, but that's the argument for that. And in here, we're just bringing up some... Let's see, where am I going with these? Moving them forward in case we need to have air gems for a counterattack. Because here's a pretty significant counterattack coming here from Bandar. And how did we do in our attacks? Success. Let's just have a quick look. Success. Success with a little bit of loss. Success. And a fail. So that one was a fail. And here, he just probed. And we lost our scout in Patala. Oh, and this is kind of interesting. Look at that. So Caleb took the throne. So we lost out on all of our chances to get thrones. But we were busy.
Yeah, well, and that was something we talked about, right? Do we early on, do we, sort of work on thrones, or do we, go to war? And I think, again, going back to the discussion about, how we were expanding on the east versus Arco, and the idea that we decided early on we were going to go to war with Patala, and, so those things weren't important. We would come back to them later, right?
That was our agreement. It's not so easy. Sometimes you got to kind of think back to memory, because it's been, it's been 7-8 weeks since we did this turn. Well, I can look it up here very quickly. Just take me a second. Look at the file. This is turn 19, October 20th. So we're 2 months. Yeah. We're 2 months from when we played this turn. So it's not surprising that we're just remembering as best we can. Now, let's just maybe have a quick look. See, there's absolutely nothing critical going on over here. Everything's nice and polite. Arcocephaly's doing what it's doing. Bogarus is doing what it's doing. We're not entirely sure. We did not spend a great deal of scout money trying to scout those guys, because we were focusing on over here in Patala. And we did move a few scouts to the borders of Patala, because we were wondering at one point, there was an army moving around here, and I thought, well, I wonder if Patala's going to join in here on this fight with Joman, because there's a couple of major wars going on. Raga is fighting somebody.
It was Caleb, wasn't it? They had two. They had Joman and Caleb were
jumping them, and then I think Bogarus and somebody else were jumping Chen Chi around about the same time. So there was a lot of wars going on, and we kind of had just this 1v1 going on over here. I remember trying to ask some Diplo and sort of inviting Vettiheim to jump in. There was no interest. And everybody else was busy. Because Caleb, Bogarus, except maybe Arcocephaly, but they couldn't have influenced our war.
Well, and I remember you telling me at some point, had you and Lucid already talked about Bogarus going at Arco, or was that much later?
I believe that was quite a bit later, because Bogarus, to the best of my memory, about this time, he was involved in the kerfuffle over Tianchi.
Okay.
We'd have to dig back into the diplomacy notes.
Yeah, and I think Vetti, not that anyone knew this at this point, or maybe they hadn't even decided, but I think that wasn't really, it comes to light that their plan is to really do a throne rush, like they were.
Well, try not to spoiler too much ahead of things, because we'd like to get to that. Well, anyways, I don't want to spoiler too much. I mean, we know a lot about what develops here. So, what should we have a look at? This fight here, I think we lost the Vans, but I don't think I'm going to watch it because it's interesting. So, looking here, we got pretty simple stuff. I'm going to take a look. He's got a couple gems. Wish I hadn't done that. That didn't work out very well, but let's see how the actual action goes. Does it get everybody blessed? Because I know one of the frustrations is when these miss. No, see, I think he missed this guy. Yeah, sure enough, he missed one. God. Oh, and look at that. So what has Patala got here? Bandar Light Warriors, screens, Nagas, but I suspect the Nagas never even get into this. We'll see it fairly soon. And a few heavy cavalry. Those might have been the PD.
Yeah.
So he's popping our glamour right off the bat. That'll be the crossbows, most likely. So now we're taking chip damage. How are we doing on repels? So we're getting repels here. Yeah. Quite well. How about here? Well, Makata archers, the club, they were repelled. So mostly our repel is working. So we wipe out the barbarians. We haven't lost any vans yet. But now I'm wondering, oh, there goes one van dead. And then some poison.
Yeah, was he the one that wasn't blessed?
I think he was, yeah. Let's see. Blessed. Nope. This is the guy that wasn't blessed. But here, we start taking the poison damage. Mm-hmm. And that's where it gets painful. Yeah. So combination of crossbows. The Nagas are not doing direct damage. I mean, they would probably chew up our vans fairly effectively with their multiple attacks. But mostly it's just chip damage. Well, and the big maul guys. So this guy runs forward a little bit. No, he didn't spend his gems, which is good. Let's see what he actually did. So he did 2 blessings, air shield, and they just held. So he didn't cast those stupid...
And then he was like, oh, I better run.
Yeah, I better run. Okay. So I don't think there's too much else to say there. I mean, that was just... If we look at the total losses, we got some crossbowmen. So what did we kill? We got all the barbarians. We got the heavy cav. Oh, they were PD.
Yeah. We didn't.
We
didn't really. I mean, again, in a I guess in good situation for your vans, even if you lose them, you would still like to have them do far more damage than they did, right? But,
yeah. But I mean, the poison had a significant effect on that. They took a lot of damage from the poison, and that gets right through any of their defense. Yep. So, and I was not expecting to see him bring out significant numbers of Nagas. I really wasn't, because he's got no significant blasts. I guess we could take a quick look back here. Just take a quick look at his blast once he gets going. We should get a blast here. All right. So it's just reinvigoration and blood surge. Mm-hmm. That's not much of a blast. Like, there's nothing there that particularly keeps the survival up. It's nowhere near enough reinvigoration to deal with the huge encumbrance of the Nagas. So the reinvigoration is not a significant blast for these Nagas. That's for his Magi. Quite obviously. The blood surge does give them a little more oomph if they can get kills. But of course, against something like Vans, they're not going to get very many kills. So when we analyze our blast versus their blast, we've got a pretty significant advantage blast-wise.
Yeah. No, and again, I mean, 5 versus 138. It depends what those 138 are, right? If they're just like heavy infantry and Mercata and stuff like that, then they probably do significantly better. But that was there were some decent troops mixed in there that was going to give us a problem regardless.
Exactly. And see, this army down here of his, a good chunk of Bakemonos, mm-hmm. They were just going after independence, but that's a lot of Bakemonos, so that's going to be a challenge. Another issue is it's very hard for us to raid across here. If we turn on the movements, so it's 26, so we could just barely...
The vans could get there.
Just barely. Else. But we can't back it up with anything, because vans with some chaff would be very nice for dealing with a lot of this crap. Even garbage archers or anything would deal with the Bakemono.
Yeah, and it goes back again to how how impactful, or a stalled turn can really mess you up. I mean, there's points where sometimes a stall happens and it's not a big deal, right? But if you're in the middle of planning your major attacks and you stall that turn, and you're the guy that's defending against you has basically a free turn to move their stuff around, which now throws off all your plans, right? What we had, where we would have moved troops to,
well, we would have
turned and attacked.
We had hoped to have band raids all the way to his back line.
Yeah.
So instead, we decided, since he pulled this major army out here, let's try to take the PD on top of his capital and mess him up a little bit. So how many have we got going here? So we got 3 squads of these coming in here. But yes, so we didn't lose significantly last turn in numbers, but we did lose significantly in momentum and initiative. Yeah, momentum, initiative, take your pick.
Because again, as a stealthy elf nation, you want to hit as many provinces as possible, especially across the back line, to force your opponent to try to either think about retaking those provinces and spread his forces out, where in this scenario we've now sort of gotten into a trench warfare kind of thing. We're fighting across a front as opposed to raiding all over the place, because again, he has large armies. You can't just ignore those.
No, we have to be capable of stopping that. If these 2 armies combine and push towards our capital, we're going to have to find a place to hold, and hopefully in cold, where the nagas are significantly less useful.
Because I think our original strategy was, based on the provinces we were going to hit, if he separated his army, we could then consolidate our forces to take on that army and potentially, win that way. At this point, we now were less able to do that because we didn't raid back far enough to potentially have him, and it's not to say that they would. You have to adjust according to plans, but that's the general idea, to say, if we've taken your 4 provinces on your back line, are you just going to sit there and let us hold those, or are you going to go back and send forces to do those, in which we can then try to pick certain ones off or thin out your larger army to try to deal with that and allow us to consolidate our forces to wipe out the larger army.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't... Anything else? This turn, there's not a huge amount to look at. I mean, just glance here. These are easy. Just a little attrition. This guy, there's a good chance that the guy that got killed here had been damaged previously. So if we have a quick look here. None of these look too busted up. But one of them, it punched through. And so we lost one.
It probably didn't get blessed.
That's the most likely problem.
Although I think this is a Vanyar also.
Yeah, with the Holy too.
Hit more of them.
Well, and this is definitely a case where it's sure nice to have. No, it's just, I think, a case that this guy on the edge, he's going to get, harassed. The harass penalty is going to bring his defense down. Yeah, it's down already. He's down to 4. Now these Bakamona are going to punch through. Yeah, boom, and there he goes. That was it. So that's the problem, in that, and that's one of the troubles with, a group of only 5, is they're just not quite a broad enough line to deal with larger amounts of province defense without loss. And here, nothing much else. See, that's 6. Okay, so I think we've kind of covered turn 19. This brings us to 30 minutes, which is a good episode length. Yep. Could go longer, but 2 turns is just kind of nice and magical.
Yep, I think that's good.
So, any final words?
Nope. It certainly didn't go as we originally planned, but then rarely do things do in Dominion. So.
Yes. Well, the best laid plans of mice and men.
Right.
All right. Correct. Well, thanks again there, Vincent R. And I will be putting this up immediately. Today is the December 18th. We're coming up to Christmas break. But I'll get this one up immediately because the game is way ahead of us. I had a bit of a I got ill a week and a half ago or so and just wasn't up for recording. So getting back into the process.
Yeah, and I've been pretty busy, so we
Okay.
haven't had a chance to hook up. So it's all good. I'm around when you need me to. So
Alrighty, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and keep tuned, keep posted, and and a shout out. Make sure you check out the friggin' All Stars, because that's actually even cooler than this game, I think.
yeah, I agree.
All right.
Later.
Bye bye.